Welcome to the Our Forever Smiles podcast, a podcast created to support mothers of children who were born with clefts and those who love them. I'm your host, Laura Arroyo.
Welcome back to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. I am Laura Arroyo. Before we jump into this episode, I would like to invite you to join this community and hear other conversations with cleft moms and advocates that will help you feel supported along your journey. All I want you to do is click on the follow or subscribe button and love your support. And it's just so exciting to see us all come together. So thank you for subscribing. As a note, we are not medical doctors, and we don't intend for you to use the information that we share here as medical advice. We are parents and advocates who love our children, and we're just sharing our own personal experience. We are so excited. I have on merch today, so if you all want to support the Our Forever Smiles podcast and community, we have merch available on the website. So not only will you have like merch to go to your appointments and stuff, but you'll also be supporting us and helping us spread awareness about the cleft journey. And so really excited to have that on our website. Today, I am so excited to have Lauren on the podcast today. She is a wife and first-time mom to a beautiful cleft-affected baby boy. She works part-time as a marketing and business development coordinator at a dental office and owns an online baby boy clothing boutique, which is really interesting and fun. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
We're excited to have you. That's so interesting that you work at a dental office because, so jumping right in, did you work there when you received your cleft diagnosis?
I started working there about a year before. So my hand has been in literally every aspect of our journey. You know, you don't really anticipate needing, dental work with cleft care until you're in it. And our dentists that I work for are absolutely phenomenal. I'm thrilled to be able to have them in our corner, to be able to do work on our son when the time comes.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you run across any cleft affected patients or anything during that time or?
Never.
Never. Wow. Yeah. So I also went online and looked at your Instagram before joining today, and your son has the cutest cleft. He's a bilateral cleft, and it's so unique though. I feel like every smile is so unique, and he has such a unique bilateral cleft. It is so cute.
It is cute. Everybody's told us that. They're like, he's got a little heart-shaped cleft, and he kind of did, depending on how you looked at it. But it was absolutely precious, and I miss it every single day.
Hi, I am so sorry to interrupt the show, but I just want to tell you about today's sponsor. Today's show sponsor is Sienna Dawn Media Integrated Marketing Agency. Sienna Dawn Media is more than just a marketing agency. They are your partners in progress. Their mission is simple: to alleviate marketing bandwidth, allowing creative business owners to focus on what they set out to do. Create. Sienna Dawn Media empowers creatives to thrive without the burden of managing their own social media and marketing campaigns. Visit siennaDawnMedia.com.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine that. So we'll go ahead and start from the beginning.
Okay.
When did you find out about his cleft?
Okay. So I was actually in my third trimester when we found out. I guess our story kind of starts when I found out I was pregnant. So as a first-time mom, I'm going to all my appointments, and I am so incredibly anxious. And I'm not normally an anxious person about this kind of stuff or anything really. But looking back, I kind of feel like that was probably the Holy Spirit in my heart telling me, something isn't right. You'll see in due time. But anyway, I go to my appointments, and I'm just continually told that, your baby's doing great. He's 2 weeks ahead. We'll see you next time. And it finally got to the very, very end of my second trimester, entering to the third. I took that leap, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to find a new provider now. She's not this. I mean, I really did love the first provider I was seeing, but I didn't feel like she was listening to my concerns, which is funny in hindsight. But I switched providers, and that's really where things kind of hit the fan and moved into that high-risk category really fast. We discovered at that first appointment with my new doctor that our baby would have cleft lip and palate. that our estimated due date was incorrect. And that's when I was referred to a specialist who she discovered that I had hypothyroidism and our baby had a growth restriction. So a lot, all at once. And I guess I'll kind of break into each of those. So the hypothyroidism was an easy fix. I didn't have that before pregnancy. I don't have it now after. I think it was just pregnancy induced somehow. Mm-hmm. And that was just an easy hormone medication fix. The growth restriction, I don't know if you've heard of that, the IUGR for short. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, I did, but for some reason, when it was IUGR, every time I've heard that, I've always thought that meant, this is going to maybe sound extreme, that their intestines may be growing on the outside of their body or something like that, or is that not? Okay. I feel like I saw that somewhere.
That's funny. No, the IUGR it's basically whenever the baby's fetal weight or like a measurement that they're keeping track of on the sonograms is below the 10th percentile for their gestational age. So that entailed us going to a maternal fetal medicine specialist who kept weekly checks on it. And what tipped us over the edge on that one was that our baby's abdominal circumference measured at 8%, while all of his other measurements were like on par, in the normal range. And my doctor explained to me that was because his little body was taking the nutrients he was getting from me and prioritizing growing the more important organs like his heart or his brain or liver versus his abdomen. And so anyway, we'd go every single week and we'd have little Doppler checks every week. And then every third week we'd do a growth scan to keep track of all the measurements and everything. But with that, there was a likelihood that if things didn't improve by, as I started progressing, I would have to deliver as early as 34 weeks and an increased risk of stillbirth the longer he stayed inside. Terrifying.
Because I don't know what to feel actually. What in the world with that first provider? Like, I'm really confused about that. Did you sense, well, you obviously sensed that something wasn't right, but like, were they just completely incompetent? Like, they had it all wrong. Did you ever go back and ask them or tell them about?
No.
So this person is still like practicing? Like, this is insane.
I know. It's a really, really big facility, and they have patients in and out all day super fast. So I feel like maybe it was just kind of overlooked, or I don't know. I did really like the provider, nurse, and everything, but I am very glad in hindsight that we switched when we did, especially.
Yeah. So you did like at least going there?
Yeah, like it was fine. Well, I'll take it back. I didn't love the facility. I did like my doctor though. So.
Yeah. Okay, so she wasn't. They weren't. So the feeling that you just got, a feeling that you weren't feeling well, or you just kind of, was this like a mental or spiritual thing that you were feeling, or did you physically not feel well?
It wasn't even physical, really. I think it was in my head, in my heart. I think it was just a little nudge. It was like, things aren't great. I mean, typical pregnancy symptoms, I'd have food aversions or my smell would be really sensitive or stuff like that. But other than that, there wasn't really anything that tipped me off.
That's really interesting. Okay. All right.
Okay. So with the due date inaccuracy, I don't know if the original doctor maybe didn't believe that I knew when we conceived, because we very much planned our pregnancy out. But I kept asking. I was like, I really think, I know this is my last period date. I know this is when I ovulated. You know what that means? Like, I'm pretty sure my due date's supposed to be this. And they had it further out than what it actually ended up being accurate, which, looking back with the growth restriction, had I actually went to that number 40 weeks, I could have easily lost him. waited it out. But all of that, and then you also find out about cleft lip and palate, which, makes it seem a little less, I don't know, I wouldn't say a little less scary, but just one more thing, because growth restriction was really scary for me at first, and we were like, we can deal with the cleft lip and palate once he's here, if we can just get him here.
So is the growth restriction, does that make them not want to come out?
No, it just means, I think it just means that they're kind of small. And they were telling me, they're like, it could just be because you're small. Like, your body maybe isn't built to have a big baby, carry a, huge pregnancy, but it might be because something about the umbilical cord is inserted in the placenta at like a strange location. There was a ton of different reasons it could have happened, but I'll never know.
Yeah, no, and the reason why I asked that is because you mentioned had you waited longer or up to the due date that the first provider said that you were to wait until that you may have lost him. So that's what kind of made me think like, oh, does that mean that they just kind of, in the risk of stillbirth, did they just kind of like not do what they usually follow the normal process that a baby would, that's kind of like ready because of that growth restriction? That's what made me think of it. But so yeah, and so you find out about this growth restriction, then you find out about Cleft. Did you tie that growth restriction to Cleft as well? Like, were you thinking like, okay, his body may be forming a little bit slower?
100%.
Or their thoughts that it could repair in
I was thinking, so when we first found out, I'm on Google scouring the internet for like, how could this have happened? What are the related syndromes? I've got this and this going on. How does this play into each other? I was just looking for answers, and that was my way of coping with the situation and all the information. And I'll be honest with you, my husband and I mean, we leaned on each other during that time, but he was coping in a much different way. He was just like taking what the doctors told us, digesting it, moving on. And here I am like, what if it's this, or what if it's this? And he's like, I just feel like you're looking for something else to be wrong, and I don't want you to do that. And obviously I wasn't looking for something else to be wrong. I was looking for a reason or something to like understand why all this is happening all at once at the third trimester, when in hindsight or in the past we have just been told, oh, he's great, we'll have a baby in October, no big deal. But that was something that we had to work through.
Yeah, I had that feeling as well. Like, I feel like sometimes, like, my fiance will say the same thing, even still, like, still to this day, like, with Giselle, I'm like, I'm just very careful, right? Like, as any mom, I was also a first-time mom as well, and I just I wasn't looking for things to be wrong with her. I just am extra cautious to not miss anything.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that I understand that, like, how you must have felt, because it's like all these things were missed. I don't want to miss anything else.
Right.
Like, I don't want to, like, go into this and, like, all of a sudden I'm blindsided. And then also I can imagine, like, being in the third trimester, you may have felt like, okay, I'm behind now. Like, I should have learned this information so long ago so that I had the resources and the education to do things differently, or to, like, be more prepared.
Exactly.
So yeah, like, I totally get that. But it does feel like, for me, and I'll speak for myself, it does feel like sometimes, like, because my fiance was like that same thing. Like, I feel like you're just looking for things to be wrong, and I'm like, yeah. I mean, first of all, I'm not gonna stop doing that.
I think it's just our nature.
Yeah, but then you start to think like, should I stop? Like, am I looking for? Do I have like PTSD or something?
Right.
For, like,
And probably, yeah. Probably.
Okay. Yeah.
So by then, it kind of felt like crunch time. So, like you had mentioned, I feel like I'm behind. I need to learn like what's going to happen, what's going on, and then our specialist got us hooked up with all of his care team. Well, not all of them, but most all of them. So we had several visits with like our plastic surgery folks and lactation and dentistry and ortho, just not the whole crew, but most of the crew that we'll have like, run-ins with. And that was really helpful as a first time parent and, kind of easing into it. But I did kind of feel like a little bit robbed of the joy of our last trimester. Like, you want to soak it in. This is the last stretch. And here we are just like absolutely worried to death when, we could have anticipated this a little more or dealt with it a little bit better.
And looking back, like, you share, like, oh, you look at this block of time, like your last trimester, but being in it is like every single day is it's painful.
Yes.
Like, you like right now, like I think about this a lot, like when, like in that day, like in the days where I was really struggling, it's like tomorrow is going to be more of the same. Struggling and suffering and no answers, and like I can't wait to move past this stage.
Right.
So yeah.
With all of these visits, my weekly checkup visits and then our, prenatal kind of educational introduction visits with the Cleft team. My husband and I joked, we were like, I think we've been up here more in this little frame of time for the baby than we have been to any doctor's office our whole lives combined. Because like it was so overwhelming the amount of time we had to take off work and drive to the big hospital and wait in the waiting rooms and have these long appointments. But I guess I'm glad we did it back in hindsight because, like I said, it was super informational. But along the way, we decided to tell our friends and family, and just the outpouring of love and prayers was overwhelming in the absolute best way. I think I had one friend in particular who had told me, when I shared with her, she had said, Lauren, babies get healed in the womb all the time. Like, you can't give up hope on that. And when I was hearing it the first time, I can't tell you how incredibly frustrated I was to hear that because I was like, girl, clearly I don't have that kind of luck, And the last thing I wanted to do was pray for that kind of scenario and then it not work out. And then I felt like I would maybe grow resentful to the Lord for not answering.
You can definitely test your faith
the way I wanted them to be answered. And like, I'm sure I'm not the only one that's been there, but I don't know. That's where I was for that situation in that time frame. But that is really where, like you said, it tested our faith. And I mean, we had to give it absolutely all of it to God before I lost my mind. I didn't feel like I had any other option, but I would love to read to you. I found my journal the other day from when I was pregnant, and just this little portion that I had wrote down. It was from a book. My mother-in-law got it for me. It's called The Red Sea Rules, and it's like a little excerpt from one of the days on there. But it says, "I cannot solve every problem, cure every hurt, or avoid every fear, but I can leave room for God. I don't have the answer to every dilemma, but I can leave room for God to work. I can't do the impossible, but He is able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that I could ask or imagine." That's Ephesians 3:20. The Lord delights in the impossible. And then this other little verse that I had jotted down was 1 John 5:14. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. And I guess kind of studying that, I had changed my mind to where I was going to leave it all in His hands. And I was like, this is what I'm asking for specifically. I want us to have easy feedings. I want us to have a short NICU stay. And if it's in your will, heal our baby any way you see fit. And that's just, I met Him in prayer every spare second of every day that third trimester, because I was like, it was just, I mean, it consumes your thoughts. I don't know how to explain to like somebody who hasn't been there how devastating it is when you first hear this news, because I mean, they were preparing us for the worst. It was like, you're going to have feeding tubes and nom device and, this, that, and the other. And it's like, whew, okay, deep breath. What is all this? And it just, for us, it looked so much different than how we anticipated it looking, having our first baby. Like, it all just got out the window. That was really scary, but that's when we decided, like, we've got to fully trust in the Lord right now, because it's all in His hands regardless, and worrying's not going to change anything.
Yeah, I love that, how you phrase that, though, because I think that I also have the same, like, feeling that you had, like, because I've spoken on this platform a little bit about that, where people have shared, they say, like, oh, well, God can heal your baby in the womb, and it can be, like, really, frustrating for people, but I think that the way that you met God in that way of giving Him room to do his will,
Right.
like the will that He has, right? So while it is like, yes, we want this incredible and miraculous healing, we are leaving room for whatever you want to do, and however you want to kind of heal this situation, whether that is, right, making baby quote unquote whole, or making other parts of the journey easy for us. Like, that's what we're praying to God for. And I think that's really that's beautiful. Like, I can sense your heart in that. Yeah.
It took a lot of soul.
And just like I said, yeah, it's like I can, just like we shared earlier, like, day to day is rough.
Very.
So
I guess, fast forward, we, rounded out the pregnancy. I was induced, and they, they holding him, and they have their hand in his mouth, and like, wait, we think his palate's intact. And I'm like, Laura, it didn't click with me. Like, they said those words, and I was just like, baby's here. Like, hey, he's here. What did you just say?
What did you expect? I mean, you probably laying on the table. It's hard to process all of it.
Like, just all the things that went on with birth. Like, I don't think it clicked until we literally got home. So we were, I guess it was the day after. I mean, like, I understood it, but I didn't understand the severity and, like, just how much of a blessing that was at the time. So, like, core memory, I vividly remember the day after we are home. I'm kind of like reclined on our couch. I've got my legs propped up, and I have our little baby boy leaned back on my thighs. And my husband just walked upstairs, and the baby yawns. And I was like, I'm just like staring at him, because you're just in love with your newborn, right? So I'm looking at him, and I was like, what's in the roof of your mouth? It was the most distinct cross I have ever seen. Like, so clear. And I immediately start bawling. My husband's like, he's looking over the balcony like, hey, are you okay? Are you okay down there? I was like, no, you gotta come see this. But to this day, he still has the cross in his mouth.
Oh,
like, I can't make this up.
That is incredible.
I know. And like, I'm looking back, like, we had the cleft palate double, triple, quadruple confirmed with the surgeon, the sonographer, the maternal fetal medicine specialist, like, all the residents, like, people would come in and like, yeah, it's obviously right there. And then I had the fetal MRI done, and I was like, they could even tell what side of the mouth it was going to be on. So I'm like, there's just no way. I had and still have the hardest time wrapping my mind around that actually happened, and it happened to us. Because, like I said, I don't have that kind of luck.
Wow, that is beautiful.
I know.
Yeah. That truly is.
So,
what did you, like, we went past this just a little bit, but what was your birth like? Like, did they end up inducing you, or did you do like C-section?
They did.
What was your birth like?
That kind of leads into the experience that I kind of forewarned you about. Actually, we were induced. I was 39 weeks 6 days, so right on par. I wanted to go as long as they would let me, but my doctor was like, absolutely no more than 40. We're cutting you off here. I'm sorry. And I was like, that's fine, as long as we're good. But so I went in to be induced, and gosh, let me read you my email, because this is actually what I ended up sending our Office of Patient Experience at the hospital that I was at. It was a lot, and I think it's going to be easier for me to read you all the details than it would be for me to tell you the story, because I'm sure I'm going to miss some pieces here and there. But here goes. You're going to get riled up, I bet, because I was super riled up. So go in to be induced. That Friday morning, we're sitting in the waiting room, and I notice a baby-friendly distinction on the walls. I feel very assured of our decision to deliver here instead of where my regular OBGYN practices. We get back to our room, start the induction process. Fast forward to real early Saturday morning, our little miracle arrives. He's taken to the nursery for further evaluation while we are taken to a postpartum floor. As soon as we get settled, I get a phone call from a nurse practitioner in the nursery. She reports that the doctor have confirmed our son does not have a cleft palate as expected. He's fed extremely well using a pigeon bottle nipple, and that he would be brought up to our room momentarily if we would like. So, having anticipated a lengthy NICU stay for months now, we were excited to have him, up there with us. A few hours come and go, and still no baby in sight. I call back to make sure something unexpected hadn't come up between our conversation and now, and if so, why weren't we notified? So, opposed to what we were told earlier, his nurse informs me that due to the floor policy, he was not allowed to come to our room because of his cleft lip, regardless of the fact that he is being cared for in the same way any other newborn is and is doing good. So we call for a wheelchair. A few nurses on our floor come by to help, saying that due to not having security on our floor, they could not have babies up there. However, they'd be happy to have me moved, as they're not in the business of keeping mothers away from their babies. So we head downstairs to get everything sorted out. So we get there, and we are told that due to the baby-friendly distinction, there's only one nurse designated to one mother and baby, as opposed to one nurse for mom and another nurse for baby. Everyone's in agreement that our baby's doing great and is perfectly able to not be restricted to the nursery. However, this has been an ongoing battle for some time due to pushback and politics from the nursing administration on the floor, the mother-baby floor. So I'm searching for a patient advocate. I relay this information to our charge nurse, our specialist, our baby's doctor, nurses, anybody who would listen. I'm very certain we were probably the talk of the hospital at that point, because we were desperately trying to get something worked out. Everybody's reaching out to see what could be done for us and what the reason is for this, and if there was any request that we could put in for this to be considered on a case-by-case basis. Everybody's in favor of us being together except for the nursing administration. So a few hours of back and forth go by, and our final excuse that we were given was that the nurses on that floor were not trained to care for cleft babies. They were not comfortable using the pigeon nipple, and they are not equipped to sterilize the nipples. So keep in mind.
On the maternity floor?
Yes.
Where you were?
No, it was on the postpartum recovery floor. Yeah.
Right, yeah, with you, the nurses that were with you. Yeah. And that they only, it's tracking.
Yeah. So keep in mind that our baby isn't requiring any different care than any other newborn besides this one nipple that they've already showed us how to use in the nursery. I would assume all the nurses pass the same board exam in order to practice, and that the pigeon nipple has one extra piece compared to any other bottle that they would have given him. His nurses offered to educate the nurses on the floor that he would be transferred to on how to use it. if they weren't comfortable using this nipple to feed our baby, imagine how uncomfortable we would be as first-time parents when we are sent home without practice. And for them to say they were not equipped to sterilize these nipples due to not having a microwave on the unit. Our baby's nurse that was in the nursery with us told us that she takes it upon herself to walk to a different building every day to use their microwave and sterilize her patient's nipples. So I kind of told them that the baby-friendly distinction that they have plastered all over their walls in the waiting room was kind of laughable. It looks appealing, but putting the policy and intent behind it into practice is much different than what's actually happening. We were very clear before and after delivery about wanting to try to breastfeed, so much so that we the lactation clinic during pregnancy to receive guidance and resources for breastfeeding a baby born with a cleft. So, like myself, just having given birth, I had internal tearing, 2 hemorrhages. I can only withstand sitting in a wheelchair in the nursery for so long. So would I've loved to have been given a little privacy in a room with the 2 of us. We just didn't get that. So not being able to learn his hunger cues and have the confidence and skills we would probably need to go home with and continue our nursing journey, it kind of ended at the hospital. And we told the doctor that came up and spoke with us in the nursery, all this is all happening, that it felt, to be honest, incredibly discriminatory to use a policy as an excuse to refuse research-based practice and, proper care to my child and I with a congenital defect. I told him, I was like, I completely understand if, he needed different care than any other baby, but if everyone can attest that he doesn't, to treat him differently solely based on his appearance is a little bit absurd and kind of cruel to us as a family. And then I pointed out how negligent and honestly lazy the nurses on that floor that, wouldn't accept us were portrayed, because for this to be a top tier medical facility like they advertise, them to not be able to sterilize a nipple and, take an education on how to use it. How is that not? If treating a patient differently based on what we are told is a disability, if that's not discriminatory in the eyes of the facility, then it seems like negligent care for the nurses, for that some nurses are able to properly care for him and others are not. So I kind of ended it that if we had known then what we know now, having, been to that hospital for months now prior to delivery, we were back and forth on delivering there versus where my OBGYN delivers, because they kept telling us, they're like, if the baby's here and he's in distress, we're probably going to have to transfer him to this bigger hospital. They've got a more, higher level NICU and all this stuff. And like the children's hospitals, affiliated. So we would hate for y'all to be separated because you wouldn't be ready for discharge yet at the hospital your OB is at versus your baby. Like that's going to put your husband in a bad situation. That's not ideal for anybody.
Yeah.
And, having that be the main reason that we delivered there, I would have thought, I never thought to ask. So for any cleft parents listening, be sure to ask if the postpartum recovery floor is well equipped to care for you and your cleft baby in the same area. Because like you said, as a first time mom, I was super scared that that bond wouldn't be there or that we wouldn't automatically click, and, having a traumatic birth. We didn't even get an hour of skin to skin. We got 8 minutes. Looking back on our pictures that we had, I was like, we've got no skin to skin time. They whisked him away, gave him a bottle when I didn't want him to have a bottle. It was just like one thing after another. And we very clearly communicated our wishes. I had given them a birth plan. It was just a lot. So birth didn't end up as we expected, but we're working through all that with therapy. And
Yeah, did you ever respond to that? Did they ever respond to your
did.
email?
They had said that they opened an investigation and they addressed my concerns, and they were like, we, look back on your records. Everything you say tracks. We're sorry about this. Hope to do better in the future. So, like, does it actually happen?
That was
I
it?
have no idea. That was it. That was absolutely it.
I mean, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I mean, possibly what they could do, but I mean, maybe they could hold their nurses accountable. This is one thing that I've talked a lot about more recently about, and it's something that happened to me. I mean, it's something that happens to a lot of people. Now, I wasn't separated from Giselle, but the nurses on the floor had no idea how to feed her. So it was kind of like,
For cleft palate to be as like a common birth defect as it is, you would think, I mean, maybe not all nurses would know, but at least, like postpartum, nursery, that area should know, I would think.
If you're working in postpartum, then you should know about cleft bottles, feeding. You should know how to feed a cleft baby. And of course, it may not be a part of your day-to-day, but getting educated on how to use the feeding systems, like that would make a world of difference to moms. And so, no, I completely understand, that feeling of how you were treated and, just what the hospitals could have done better. And it's actually one of the reasons why I started this podcast here is really like, not only just for cleft moms to have those stories to like resonate with, right? Like we see you and validate your feelings, but also hopefully like there are some professionals out there that can really understand and listen to us as like advocates and to learn, right, from these mistakes, these things that can happen. The other thing I was curious about though is what did they like? When the nurses changed shifts, did they did it make a difference, or did they just kind of stand their ground in
our
wanting to?
charge nurse on the floor that we were at? It was a postpartum floor, but the babies weren't allowed up there because she said there was like no security. I don't really know what that was about, but that charge nurse was absolutely phenomenal. She went above and beyond. I mean, like I think she even went as far as like stepping over her boss's head to ask for, just a case by case consideration for us being able to be together. And it made absolutely no difference at all. They were sweet as they could be to me, but in the grand scheme of things, it didn't change our situation at all.
Yeah. Wow. And so I'm so happy I'm glad that you all are getting through that now. How old is your baby boy now?
He's 6 months.
6 months, so he's still like just a little baby.
I know.
Okay, and he hasn't had his surgery yet?
He has.
Oh, he has. Yes. Okay, I feel like the most recent pictures I saw were of his lips. So, how did you prepare? I mean, considering you've gone through all of this, how did you prepare yourself for that day?
I don't think we were prepared. I don't know if you really ever can be fully prepared. When we walked into his little, cubby area in post-op recovery, I have never fell to pieces like I did in that moment. It was hard. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, was to see him in that state, because he was inconsolable. There's like wires and cords all attached to him every which way. He's sobbing, I'm sobbing. The nurse is like, what was crazy though was that I do love his care team and surgeon and everything, but I don't think it was her. She was one of our biggest advocates that day, but she, like the protocol for cleft repairs, they were ready to send us home within 30 minutes of him coming out of the OR. And I don't know if that's typical for like every hospital, but I was telling her, I was like, I can't get any milk down this kid's throat. Like, do you have any advice? And she was like, just tell him you don't feel comfortable and y'all can stay overnight. And so we did. We stayed overnight. And it didn't make a whole lot of difference. I'm like curled up on the little crib in the room with him. He's crying, I'm crying. We're like taking turns sleeping on the floor, and it's like you can't sleep in a recovery room with your baby crying. I mean, it was just like you'd see his stats going up as he'd get more and more agitated. And to this day, we are almost 3 months post-op. He still doesn't eat like he did before surgery. And I don't know if,
Really?
yeah, like the days following, like once we got home, like those 4 days, the hardest days of my life. Like it was just the screaming nonstop. And it's like, it's because they're in pain. It's not because they've, it's witching hour. It's not because they need a bottle. And it's like, well, that's an easy fix. The most intense pain, like I was telling somebody, I was like, it doesn't even seem like my baby anymore because he's so, I don't know if you could say a baby's well behaved, but like he never hardly cried. He'd take his bottle, no problem. He'd go down to sleep fairly well. Like it was like they took my perfect little child into this OR and then brought me back a stranger that looked different, smelled different, acted different, sounded different. And it's like, what do I do with it? Like I love it to pieces, but like you have to adapt to a whole new child basically. And that was really hard.
Yeah, did you learn his smile? Like
I think I still am.
yeah.
I will look back on pictures every single day almost, and I just like compare where we are now in recovery versus before. And it's like I miss this little feature so bad, or I wonder what he would have grown into had he looked like this. And I miss it so bad. I mean, like I don't think I'll ever get over it. I don't know if it's just the stage that I'm in right now, but so I don't know how to get over it. If you have any tips, send them my way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just also a part of your little baby just kind of growing as well. Like, of course, it's like such a distinct feature, but also like sometimes I look at Giselle now and I'm like, oh wow, you're like really like turning into like a human, like you're a real. Yeah, but I think like it definitely does take time. It takes time to adjust to what it is now, but those few days that are right after are so incredibly hard.
Yes.
And were you able to like alternate pain medicine? How did you kind of try to manage the pain
No,
there?
since he was 3 months, he was right on the edge of we're finishing now our 3 months, about to be 4 months. And they can't have Motrin until they're 6 months. So we were doing time like real steady around the clock every, I don't know, 4 or 6 hours, whatever the thing was. But they sent us home with a little bit of, baby narcotic that we were real hesitant to use. I think I ended up using just like maybe half a dose once because I was so hesitant to use it. I was like, I'm supposed to have this.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that someone told me as well is that lip repair is really difficult because it's exposed, right? Versus like palate. So you're kind of like walking around, even though you're not really gonna like hurt them, unless you intentionally hit them or something. But you're kind of like you don't feel that way, so you're like walking around like really careful with this like baby, or like you don't want to put it down a certain way, you don't want to roll over a certain way, and so it's like maybe it's like holding on to like a glass bowl for a few days.
Seriously, and like we felt like that for probably a good month afterward. Like we kept his cozy coo on him until it was a very hard scab, like till the stitches were out. And I mean, it took weeks. Everybody just kind of dissolved at a different rate. And gosh, looking back, I don't know how we did that. We had him like we didn't know. I don't know if like we were just ignorant to the fact or how surgeries work because we have never really been exposed to a lot of health issues. Praise God, but we didn't know he was going to have a breathing tube down his throat during surgery until that morning, and so that really irritated his airways. And I mean, there was just so many different little things. I have a list of them that we didn't know we needed until, we're in the facts. So we didn't have gas drops. We didn't use gas drops before. I don't know if it was like the fumes or the gas they gave him to knock him out and then put the IV in. That took forever to wear off. So we were giving him gas drops around the clock, Tylenol around the clock, because you could tell he's in pain. And then he also had the nose stents in his nostrils, and them things were so nasty. I mean, girl, we.
But they stitched them in though, right?
They did, yeah.
Yeah. And then does it eventually come out, and do you kind of just clean it and put them back in, or how did they?
So they were stitched in. I want to say pretty high up on their nose, and they were long. When they came out, I was like, "Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that for weeks on end." But there was a lot of drainage from his airways being irritated, and then just the whole thing because their nose is shaped differently now. And we got to where they would get so crusty and clogged up, and we would clean them all the time. Anytime he would get a wink of sleep, I would have some fine point tweezers, kind of digging around because they had told us, I was like, I'm so scared that he can't breathe. We will lay him asleep and you can hear he's gasping for air. I don't even want to sleep when he sleeps because I have to watch and make sure he doesn't pass away in his sleep. But they told us, they were try to get one of those little suction bulbs to suction the crusties out, and that wouldn't fit in the nasal stents. It was way too big. And they were like, what about trying to put one of the saline squirts up? That wouldn't fit. I had to get fine point tweezers and some saline mist and kind of keep it wet so it would keep moving. And we would so delicately clean around the inside, the outside, the little connecting piece, and it was so nasty. I'm not for all that, but I was like, I'm happy to do it because if it helps him breathe any better, we would do anything for that. But that was hard.
Yeah, but that's a good tip as well. If you have the nose stents, you can get a tweezer and some saline to kind of help them as well. Are there any other items that you feel people should have or be prepared to have?
Yes, I would recommend having. They actually put a piece of tape over a pretty good portion of his face where the stitches were, and they told us to keep bacitracin. I might not have said that right. On it for the first few days, and then it'll start lifting up as it gets wet, and as he cries more and stuff. So I would recommend having the little eyebrow scissors, those little relative scissors, to kind of keep it trimmed. Because it's kind of easy to snag and pull, and I never wanted him to rip it off because that would hurt so bad. But I just kept trimming them a little bit every day. And then our surgeon told us that he was fine to have a passy right after surgery. And so we tried it, but his lip was so swollen and painful. He couldn't really grab onto it with his mouth for, I don't know, probably almost a week after surgery. He's a passy kid. He likes a passy kid. And, we never tried to wean him off of it because we didn't think we would have to. I think that kind of made our first few days after surgery worse because, like I said, he took the passy to fall asleep, and without it, we just bounced. My husband got him stuck on bouncing, and when he had to go to work, I was just in the trenches because I was like, I'm not built to bounce like you are. And when I tell you, we can bounce the exact same way. He would tell me, I would mirror him, how he's doing it, the depth he's going, the bounciness. That kid only wanted his daddy. And it was sweet, but it was hard when daddy had to go to work. So, about that, I would recommend getting a yoga ball to sit and bounce because if not, you will wear yourself out bouncing for hours on end trying to get them to stay asleep and fall asleep. But another thing we got right after surgery was we're borrowing a friend's outlet, little outlet socks. We didn't use those before, but like now, I can't imagine not using it because I was, like I said, I was so worried about his oxygen levels and like, are you breathing? Are you good over here? Because when he'd get real worked up, his heart rate would get really high and all of that. It was just a blur, kind of.
Yeah.
Really, it was a blur. It was dramatic, but it was also kind of thankfully fading away. Um, last,
We used the
go ahead.
Nanit, which was really good as well. The Nanit.
Oh yeah, lifesaver.
We love that.
It's just like a peace of mind thing for me. Like he obviously ended up being fine, but had I not had it, there would have been absolutely no sleep in our house because I was just hawk eyes on him. But lastly, I would so recommend having a community that's local to you that has walked through their cleft journey recently. Thankfully, when I was pregnant, my OB, she put me in touch with some moms who are a little bit older than me who recently had children and cleft children who have walked through it. So one of my good friends now, her baby is 3, and when I'm telling you, I would text them like all throughout the day, like, is this normal? When should I expect this to happen? When did y'all go to a follow up? Am I overreacting? Can I call the nurse for this? What would you do in this situation? I'm sure I probably blew their phone up, but they were so gracious with me and so kind to hear me out and like just they had all the right things to tell me. Like such a peace of mind and like, people, everyone's so kind about it, but it's not the same unless you've been there.
It is. That's so true. Did they say anything? Like, I remember going back to the growth restriction. Did you just kind of like catch up? Or...
Okay, I'm sorry, I glazed over that. We
No.
Once we had posted online for like all of our friends and family to, know and expect and pray for us, we went back for our subsequent growth scan that next 3 or 4 weeks afterward, and he jumped from 8% to 26 percentile. So
wow.
He caught up, but we did continue the weekly check-ins because my specialist was like, I just want to make sure nothing goes crazy.
Yeah, for sure. And so how is he doing like today? What is
so good?
How is his and
so
all
good? He's finally, I feel like, getting back to himself. He's, hitting all his little milestones. He's getting so active and eating his hands all the time, and we're getting into food and everything. But it's been a journey. I will say I mentioned our OB that put me in touch with a mom who had been there after I had him and kind of got through the thick of it. She gave me a call after my 6-week checkup, and I thought, oh gosh, something came back on my blood work. Like, I'm gonna have to make another trip up there. What's going on? So I called her back, and she was like, "Hey, girl, so I've got something for you. The tables have turned. I just diagnosed a mom who is having a cleft baby in a few months, and I wanted to see if you would meet with her." And kind of like I said, tables were turned, and I kind of got to walk through the journey with a new cleft mom who is now a good friend of mine. So we have kind of, as of recently, started something kind of similar to our Forever Smiles. We started a cleft ministry of Mississippi. So we're trying to get together and connect with local families and local moms across the state and try to arrange meetups as we can and like really just pray for each other, encourage, and hold their hand as they walk through all of what's to come.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that. And if there's anything that we can do to kind of like support that, we'll definitely put like information about it in the show notes when it's available. But that is phenomenal. Of course, this podcast is like a global thing, but we've been doing monthly meetups here. I'm in North Carolina, so I've been doing monthly meetups as well because I wanted to build like a like you said, like a local community. And then I was thinking like, oh, maybe we can have different chapters in different states and stuff like that. It's really like, because I think that it's so important and so valuable, like you said, to have community
Oh yeah.
and to have people, moms that can relate to you. It's so funny, like I have moms that reach out to me all the time, and I had someone reach out to me and they're like, Laura, no, nobody, it's nice talking to my friends and family, but I actually, talking to you is just so different
Yes.
because you know exactly what I'm talking about and you can relate to me.
Yes.
And so, and I understand that so much because
I oftentimes feel like talking with friends and family, like I feel like I'm being dramatic when I explain like how hard things were and like how we're going through it and navigating everything because like they haven't been there, and they don't. I mean, like they can sympathize, but they don't really know. But talking with you and talking with somebody who's been there, like they get it 100%, and that makes such a difference because like you feel so validated.
Yeah, that's so true. What do you think, and this is in closing, what do you think has been the biggest lesson that you've learned along your journey?
Ugh, I would say so firmly that even in the thick of it and in the hard, God can use every last bit of that for good and like for his purpose. Like looking back, I feel like we like now I get to play a part in creating a ministry for other cleft moms to connect and be lifted up in prayer. And like now every time that we go in public and somebody's like, oh, look at your baby, he's so cute, I get to tell them about the miracle that happened to us. And like now I feel like even my friends' faiths are stronger because of very closely witnessing what all happened with us and what he's done for us. And I don't know. I think now that we've kind of gotten through the thick of it, if that hadn't happened, I'd still be going through the motions. And I don't know. If I could just encourage anybody, I would say that it's so hard, and not to minimize that in the slightest. It is so hard, but once you get through it, I promise you can find good once you look back on it.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Oh my goodness. I just wanted to thank you, Lauren, for sharing your story here with us. Of course, like Lauren started off like it's a little traumatic, but but honestly, I feel like a lot of our stories are traumatic.
Yeah, I do too.
But I think more importantly, I am so happy that you've come on to share like your faith story because I think that that's something that's really important and will resonate with a lot of people as well. Just to see how God has worked in your life and how it can work in so many other people's lives. So I really appreciate you being vulnerable and being like open about sharing that part of your journey as well.
Of course.
Well,
It took me a while to get there, but I'm so happy to be able to share it now.
Yeah. And thank you all for listening to the Our Forever Smiles Cleft Mom Diaries and Support podcast. Be sure to subscribe and submit a review of the podcast wherever you listen. I hope that you've enjoyed this audio experience. Maybe you cried a little, laughed a little, but more importantly, I hope that you feel a little peace of reassurance and even joy in your journey. Talk to you next week.
Hey everyone, it's Laura here. I'm popping in today because I need your help. If Our Forever Smiles has ever helped you, if you've learned something new, felt less alone, or found hope through this podcast, then I'm asking you to help keep it going. Creating this podcast, sharing stories, and building a space where cleft families feel seen and supported is something that I pour my heart into. But the truth is, I cannot do it alone. If we want to reach more families and provide even more resources, we need your support. So I thought of a creative way to do this. For just $2 a month, you can help ensure this podcast keeps going strong. For $5 a month, you'll unlock exclusive Moms in Real Life content, real unfiltered conversations about motherhood and career and everything in between. And then for $10 a month, you can get everything plus exclusive merch to show your support. If this podcast has helped you and you want to see it grow to help other families that are probably facing the very same challenges that you are facing right now, please consider supporting us today. Every dollar goes toward making a difference for Cleft families just like yours. And right now, we'll be using the funds to elevate the show for production. So we'll be able to add more video and just get new equipment. And as soon as this community is established and we're able to do more, we definitely plan to go beyond the scope of just this community. We want to be able to support scholarships for new craniofacial surgeons. We want to be able to support global surgeries and just really spread our efforts to continue to make an impact in our community. I just want to thank you in advance, and I'm just so grateful that you all are able to support me and support this community here. And it's definitely something that I'm really looking forward to. The link is in the show notes, and I just want to do a shameless plug here. The Moms in Real Life podcast is so cool, so candid, and yeah, it's definitely something that you'll want to check out. Thank you all again.